The scanning room was cold and white. Maya-chan stood in the center of a metal circle while blue lights moved across her body. She kept her hands at her sides and her face calm. Around her, aliens of every shape and size waited for their turn. The Galactic Coalition had been testing species for thousands of years. Their universal power index could measure everything: strength, speed, mental abilities, energy output, healing rate. The number told everyone exactly how dangerous you were. It decided your future. Maya watched a creature made of living crystal step out of the scanner before her. The Kreth Assessor, a being that looked like a walking diamond, checked his screen. Candidate Vorn. Species: Thyssen. Power Index: 78.3. Classification: Combat Elite. The Thyssen was a tall humanoid covered in scales that glowed like hot metal. Small flames danced around his fingers, even when he stood still. He smiled at his score and walked away to join the other high-ranked candidates. Next candidate, the Kreth called out. Human designation: Maya-chan. Maya stepped forward onto the scanning platform. Badvar. The blue lights began their work again. She felt them pass through her skin, her muscles, her bones. The machine was reading everything about her body. She was not impressive by galactic standards. She knew this. Humans had no armor, no claws, no venom. They could not breathe fire or read minds or regenerate lost limbs. They were soft creatures from a small planet in an unremarkable solar system. The scanning lights turned off. The Kreth looked at his screen. His crystal face showed no emotion, but Maya saw his body shift in a way that suggested disappointment. Candidate Chen. Species: Human. Power Index: 2.7. The number hung in the air. Somewhere behind her, she heard what might have been laughter. A score of 2.7 out of 100. It was barely above the minimum threshold for being classified as a thinking being. Classification, the Kreth continued. Support role only. You are not cleared for frontline combat positions. Maya nodded once. Understood. You may proceed to the waiting area for low-tier candidates. She walked past the other beings in line. A massive insectoid warrior with blades for arms looked down at her with what seemed like pity. A floating sphere of pure energy simply ignored her completely. She was beneath notice. The waiting area for low-tier candidates was small and empty. Maya sat on a bench and looked out the window at the space station beyond. Ships from 100 worlds came and went. This was the Integration Bureau, where the Coalition decided what every individual was worth. She thought about her score. 2.7. The algorithm had measured her strength and found her weak. It had measured her speed and found her slow. It had checked for psychic abilities, energy manipulation, natural weapons, and toxic secretions. It had found nothing. But Maya knew something the algorithm did not. Back on Earth, she had been a distance runner. Not the fastest. Never the fastest. But she had finished races that broke other people. She had run 100-mile races through mountains. She had kept moving when her body screamed at her to stop. She had learned a simple truth that the Coalition's machines could not measure. The body lies about its limits. The human body sends pain signals long before real damage occurs. It tells you to stop when you still have 20% left in the tank. It begs and pleads and threatens. And humans, unlike most species in the galaxy, had learned to ignore those signals. Maya had once hiked 17 hours out of a canyon with a broken ankle. She had finished a desert marathon with kidney failure already beginning. She had competed in Navy survival training and outlasted men twice her size simply by refusing to quit. The algorithm had no input field for that. A door opened and a small alien entered the waiting room. It looked like a mix between a fox and a lizard with orange fur and green scales. Its eyes were large and curious. "You are the human?" it asked. "Yes, I am Specialist Wren. I prepare candidates for the Vanguard selection trial." The creature sat down across from her. "I must be honest with you. No species with an average power index below 15 has ever passed the trial. Your score is 2.7. I understand. The trial takes place on a death world. Kurith 7. The gravity is higher than your planet. The rain is acid. There are predators designed by an ancient civilization specifically to kill anything that moves." Rin tilted its head. "You will be competing against the Thishan you saw earlier. Against Vankai warriors who can run at 70 kilometers per hour. Against Dorvian shapeshifters who can become any creature they have seen." Maya looked at the small alien. "And?" Rin blinked. "And you still wish to participate?" "That's why I'm here. May I ask why?" "With your score, you could take a comfortable support position, communications, medical assistance, logistics. There is no shame in knowing your limits." Maya smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had heard these words 1,000 times before. "On my planet," she said, "there is a race called the Barclay Marathons. It is 100 miles through the worst terrain anyone could find. The course is unmarked. The bushes have thorns that tear your skin. You have 60 hours to finish, and you cannot sleep." Rin listened with obvious confusion. "In 40 years, only 15 people have ever finished it," Maya continued. "Not because their bodies cannot do it, because their minds tell them to stop. The race is designed to make you quit. That is its purpose. I do not understand the relevance." Maya stood up. "I finished it, twice." She walked toward the door that led to the candidate barracks. "I will see you at the trial, Specialist Rin." She left the small alien sitting alone, still trying to process what she had said. In her quarters that night, Maya looked at herself in the mirror. She was 34 years old. She had scars on her knees from falls. Her feet were ugly from years of abuse. Her body was a map of everything she had survived. Tomorrow, she would board a ship to Kurith 7. She would compete against beings who could kill her with a single blow. She would face a world designed to destroy anything that walked on it. The algorithm said she was worth 2.7. Maya turned off the light and went to sleep. She would need her rest. The real work was about to begin. The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere of Kurith 7. Maya held onto the straps of her seat and watched the other candidates through the red emergency lighting. There were 42 of them in total. She was the smallest person on the ship. Across from her sat Kethra, a Vankai warrior. The alien stood over 2 meters tall and had 4 powerful legs built for speed. Her body was covered in thick chitin armor that gleamed like polished wood. Her power index was 71.4. Next to Kethra was the Thesan pyrokinetic, Varath. Heat waves rose from his scaled body, even in the cold ship. He had scored 78.3. He looked at Maya once and then looked away, as if she was not worth remembering. The ship's speakers crackled. "Attention, candidates. You will be dropped at random points across the northern continent. Your objective is simple. Reach the extraction beacon at coordinates Delta 7. Distance, 400 kilometers. Time limit, none. The trial ends when the last candidate either finishes or fails." Maya did the math in her head. 400 kilometers. In good conditions on Earth, she could cover that in about 5 days. But these were not good conditions. "Kurith 7 facts," the speaker continued. "Gravity is 1.4 times your standard. Atmosphere is breathable but thin. Precipitation is mildly acidic. Local fauna includes the Kurith stalker, the tunnel maw, and various species of carnivorous plants. Good luck." The floor beneath Maya opened, and she fell into gray light. The drop harness slowed her fall, and she landed hard on rocky ground. The sky above was the color of old bruises, purple and yellow and sick green. She unhooked herself and looked around. Mountains in the distance. Dead trees closer. The ground was covered in sharp black rocks that would cut through boots within days. She could already feel the extra gravity pulling at her bones. Maya started walking. The first day was about learning the world. She found water in the stems of certain plants and learned to recognize which ones would burn her throat. She ate insects that tasted like battery acid but gave her protein. She avoided the stalkers by staying downwind and moving slowly. Other candidates were not so careful. Through the communication implant in her skull, she heard the updates. Candidate Varish eliminated. Cause: tunnel maw attack. Candidate On eliminated. Cause: toxic plant consumption. Candidate Drex eliminated. Cause: stalker pack. 12 candidates gone before the sun set on the first day. Maya kept walking. She saw Vorath the Thesan in the distance during the second day. He was moving fast, burning through obstacles with his fire abilities. When stalkers approached him, he simply turned them to ash. He covered 50 kilometers while she covered 20. But Maya noticed something. Every time he used his fire, he ate from a pack of dense food bars he carried. His abilities burned calories at a massive rate. He was a powerful engine, but engines need fuel. On the third day, the acid rain began. It was not strong enough to kill immediately, but it ate away at everything slowly. Maya covered herself with leaves and kept moving. The rain soaked through eventually, leaving small burns on her skin. She ignored them. Kethra the Venkai passed her during the rain. The warrior was still running on her 4 legs, but Maya saw that her beautiful chitin armor was turning white in places. The acid was eating through it. "You should find shelter," Kethra called out as she passed. "You will dissolve." "So will you," Maya replied. Kethra made a sound that might have been a laugh and continued running. She was still fast, but she was damaging herself with every step. On day 4, Maya found Vorath. The Thesan was sitting against a rock, shaking. His scales had lost their glow. His eyes were dull. When Maya approached, he barely looked up. "Food," he whispered. "I need food. My fire ate everything." Maya looked at him. His power had been his weakness. He had burned so bright that he had burned himself out. "There are insects under the flat rocks," she said. "They taste terrible, but they have calories." Vorath shook his head. "I cannot eat such things. My metabolism needs concentrated energy. Then you will die here." She kept walking. Behind her, she heard him try to stand and fall. The communication implant buzzed in her skull an hour later. Candidate Vorath eliminated. Cause: metabolic failure. The candidate who had scored 78.3 was gone. The candidate who had scored 2.7 was still walking. By day 5, Maya's body was beginning to fail in the normal ways. Her feet were blistered and bleeding. Her muscles were breaking down. Every joint was swollen. The thin atmosphere made her lightheaded, but she had felt all of these things before. They were old friends. Her body was sending her signals that said, "Stop, rest, quit." She had learned long ago that these signals came too early. The body protected itself with lies. She passed 3 more candidates that day. A Dorvian shapeshifter who had exhausted his cellular reserves and could no longer hold any form. A floating energy being whose power had scattered in the low-pressure atmosphere. A massive armored creature who had simply run out of the specialized food it needed. All of them had scored above 40. All of them were finished. Maya kept walking. On day 6, she climbed a ridge and looked out at the landscape ahead. The beacon was still over 100 kilometers away. The terrain was worse here. Sharp valleys and unstable ground. She sat down and ate the last of the insects she had collected. Her body wanted to sleep for a week. Her mind wanted to give up. Instead, she did what she always did. She focused on the next step. Just the next step. Nothing else mattered. Not the distance. Not the pain. Just the next step. She stood up and kept walking. The galaxy's scoring system had measured her strength, her speed, her abilities. It had given her a number that said she was worthless. But the scoring system did not understand what it was measuring. It did not understand that humans had evolved on a planet where persistence hunting was a survival strategy, where the greatest hunters were not the fastest or the strongest, but the ones who simply refused to stop chasing, where the prey would eventually collapse from exhaustion while the human was still walking. Maya was not fast. She was not strong. She had no special powers, but she was still walking. And one by one, the powerful were falling behind her. Director Vorath watched the screens in the orbital monitoring station with growing confusion. 42 candidates had started the trial. 23 remained. The elimination rate was normal for Karath-7. What was not normal was who had been eliminated. He pulled up the statistics on his console. Average power index of eliminated candidates, 52.3. Average power index of remaining candidates, 41.7. The numbers were inverted. The strong were falling. The weak were surviving. This makes no sense, said Assessment Officer Kryn, the Crystal Kreth who had scanned Maya on the first day. The high-index candidates should be dominating this trial. Vorath tapped the screen and pulled up individual tracking data. Show me the human. Maya Chan's biosign appeared on the main display. Heart rate elevated but stable. Body temperature slightly high. Hydration levels low but acceptable. And then the numbers that made no sense. Pain indicators were spiking constantly. Her feet registered severe tissue damage. Her muscles showed signs of micro-tearing throughout both legs. Her joints were inflamed beyond safe parameters. Her back had sustained stress fractures in 2 vertebrae. Why is she still moving? Kryn asked. Vorath zoomed in on the neurological data. Her brain is producing chemicals I do not recognize. Cross-reference with human medical database. The computer took a moment. Chemicals identified. Endorphins, adrenaline, cortisol. These are human stress response hormones. They suppress pain signals and increase physical performance temporarily. Temporarily, Kryn repeated. She has been producing them for 6 days. That should not be possible, another officer said. Sustained hormone production at this level would cause organ failure in any known species. Vorath pulled up more data. The human's hormone levels were indeed far beyond what should be survivable. But her organs were not failing. Somehow, her body had adapted to running on emergency chemicals as a baseline state. Query her implant, Vorath ordered. Confirm the monitoring device is functioning correctly. The query went out. The response came back verified. The implant was working perfectly. Maya Chen was experiencing constant, severe pain. Her body was telling her to stop every second. She was ignoring it. Director, one of the monitoring officers called out. You should see this. A secondary screen showed a recording from earlier that day. Maya was crossing a field of sharp rocks. With every step, her damaged feet left bloody prints. The biological data showed pain spikes with each impact that would have dropped most species unconscious. Her face showed nothing. She just kept walking. What are we looking at? Kryn asked. Vorath was quiet for a long moment. Then he began searching through the Coalition's database on humans. The species had only been contacted 30 years ago. The records were incomplete. But there was enough. He found references to events called marathons. Races of over 40 kilometers that humans ran for recreation. then ultramarathons, races of 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers, across deserts and mountains and frozen wastelands. He found a record of something called the Tour de France. Humans riding primitive wheeled machines for over 3,000 kilometers across rough terrain. For 3 weeks straight, he found accounts of human soldiers who had walked hundreds of kilometers through enemy territory with wounds that should have killed them. Explorers who had survived conditions that registered as instantly lethal for most species. Their species, Vorith said slowly, appears to have a unique adaptation. What adaptation? They are one of the weakest sentient species on record. Vorith turned to face his officers. Their bodies send pain and exhaustion signals far earlier than actual biological limits. A human who feels completely exhausted typically has 40% of their physical capacity remaining. The signals are a safety margin built into their evolution. That would apply to all species, Kryn said. No, other species feel exhaustion when they are truly exhausted. Their bodies are honest with them. Vorith looked back at the screen showing Maya. Human bodies lie, and humans have learned to ignore those lies. The room fell silent. Run a projection, Vorith ordered. Based on current movement rates and elimination patterns, what is the probability that candidate Chen finishes the trial? The computer processed the data. The answer appeared on screen. Probability of completion, 73.2%. Kryn stepped back from his console. That cannot be right. Her power index is 2.7. Candidates with scores below 15 have never completed this trial in 800 years of records. The power index does not measure what she has, Vorith said. It measures strength, speed, and abilities. It does not measure the willingness to suffer. It does not measure the decision to continue when every part of your body is begging you to stop. He watched Maya on the screen. She was climbing a hill now, using her hands because her legs could barely support her weight. Her entire body was a map of damage. And yet she moved forward, meter by meter, never stopping. Update her file, Vorith said quietly. To what classification? Vorith thought for a moment. The Coalition had dozens of threat categories. Physical threats, psychic threats, technological threats. But they had no category for this. No classification for a species that simply refused to acknowledge when it should be dead. Create a new category, he finally said. Endurance anomaly. Flag for further study. Should we inform the Vanguard Command? Not yet. Vorith sat down heavily. I want to see how this ends first. I want to see what happens when her body truly reaches its limits. On the screen below, Maya reached the top of the hill. She stood there for a moment, swaying, looking at the terrain ahead. Then she started down the other side, still walking, always walking. Vorith had served the Coalition for 200 years. He had seen species that could destroy cities with a thought. Species that could survive in the vacuum of space. Species that bent the laws of physics like soft metal. None of them had ever scared him quite like this small, broken human who refused to fall down. He made a note in the file. Recommend immediate reassessment of human species threat classification. Current rating may be significantly underestimated. Then he settled in to watch. He had a feeling he was witnessing something that would change the Coalition's understanding of power forever. Day 7 began with Maya unable to feel her feet. This was not unusual. The nerves had been sending pain signals so constantly that her brain had simply stopped listening to them. She could still walk. She just could not feel the ground anymore. She had not slept more than 2 hours in the last 2 days. Sleep was a luxury she could not afford. Every hour she rested was an hour the environment worked against her. The acid rain had returned. The predators were learning her patterns. She had to keep moving, 80 kilometers to the beacon. At her current pace, she could make it in 2 more days. Maybe 3 if the terrain was bad. She came over a ridge and stopped. Kethra lay at the bottom of a small valley, her body pressed against a rock formation. The Venkai warrior who had passed Maya so easily on day 3 was not moving. Maya made her way down carefully. Her legs did not want to cooperate with the descent. She fell twice, catching herself on her hands. The skin on her palms tore. She ignored it. When she reached Kethra, the warrior's eyes opened. They were cloudy with pain and exhaustion. "Human?" Kethra said. Her voice was weak. "You are still alive. So are you. Not for long." The warrior shifted slightly, and Maya saw the damage. The acid rain had eaten through her chitin armor in multiple places. The soft tissue beneath was exposed and infected. Her forelegs, built for incredible speed, were cracked and broken from days of running on hard ground. "I pushed too hard," Kethra said. "I thought speed would save me. I did not understand this world." Maya knelt beside her. She checked the warrior's vital signs through her implant. Heart rate dangerously low. Internal temperature dropping. Without medical attention, Kethra would be dead within hours. "Can you walk at all?" Maya asked. "I cannot even stand." The warrior closed her eyes. "Leave me, small one. You cannot carry me. The math is simple. I weigh 300 kilograms in this gravity. You weigh 60. It is not possible." Maya looked at the warrior. Then she looked at the horizon. Then she started searching the valley for materials. "What are you doing?" Kethra asked, changing the math. She found dead branches from the twisted trees that grew in the lowlands. She found vines that were strong enough to hold weight. She worked for 2 hours, her damaged hands screaming with every motion, building a frame that could support a body, a travois, one of the oldest transport technologies in human history. 2 long poles connected by a platform, designed to be dragged behind a person or animal. Designed for exactly this situation. "This will not work," Kethra said as Maya tied the frame together. "Even with your machine, you cannot move me." "We will find out." Maya positioned the travois and began the hardest part, getting 300 kilograms of injured Venkai onto the platform. It took her an hour. She had to leverage Kethra's body using rocks and branches, moving her centimeters at a time. When it was done, Maya stood at the front of the travois and picked up the 2 poles. The weight settled onto her shoulders. Her spine compressed. Her knees nearly buckled. She took a step forward. The travois dragged behind her with a scraping sound. "This is madness," Kethra said from the platform. "You will kill yourself." Maya did not answer. She took another step, then another. The next 31 hours were the worst of her life. She moved at less than 2 kilometers per hour. The weight on her shoulders was crushing. Every muscle in her body was tearing itself apart. Her vision blurred. Her thoughts became slow and strange. 12 hours in, her right shoulder dislocated. The joint simply gave out under the constant strain. Maya stopped, set down the poles, and grabbed her own arm. She had done this before, years ago, during a climbing accident. She knew the technique. Rotation and pressure. A moment of terrible pain. The joint popped back into place. She picked up the poles and kept walking. 20 hours in, her left shoulder went the same way. She fixed it the same way. The pain was distant now, like it was happening to someone else. Her body had disconnected from her mind. She was just a machine designed to move forward. Kethra stopped telling her to quit around hour 15. The warrior simply watched in silence as the human dragged her across the landscape. Sometimes Maya talked to stay awake. She told Kethra about Earth, about running races through mountains, about the time she had gotten lost in a forest for 3 days and walked out alive. Your species is broken, Kethra said at one point. Yes, Maya agreed. We are. The orbital monitoring station flagged her files 17 separate times during the journey. Each flag was accompanied by the same note: behavior outside predicted parameters. Director Vorath watched every hour. He did not sleep. He could not look away. Her spine has sustained multiple stress fractures, one of his officers reported. Her muscle tissue is showing signs of severe breakdown. Her organ function is declining across all systems. Is she still moving? Yes, Director. Then keep watching. As the sun rose on day 8, Maya saw the beacon dot. It was still 20 kilometers away, sitting on a hill surrounded by flat ground. 20 kilometers. 6 or 7 hours of normal walking. But she was dragging 300 kilograms behind her. And she had not slept in over 40 hours. She stopped for a moment. Just a moment. Her body was shaking so badly she could barely stand. Human, Kethra called from the travois. Maya, you can leave me here. Someone will find me after the trial ends. You do not need to die for me. Maya looked back at the warrior. Kethra's eyes were clear now, focused with something that might have been respect. I did not come this far to finish alone, Maya said. She turned back toward the beacon and started walking. The last 20 kilometers took her 9 hours. She fell 11 times. Each time, she got back up. Her body had stopped functioning properly. She was operating on something beyond physical capability, something the Coalition's algorithms could not measure or understand. When she finally crossed the beacon threshold, dragging Kethra behind her, she collapsed. She lay on the ground, staring up at the purple sky, unable to move. Her body had finally reached its absolute limit. There was nothing left. Not even enough energy to feel relief. In the orbital station, Director Vorath stood up from his chair. How many candidates have finished? He asked. With the human and the Vunkai, 9 total. She is the last one across. And the other 33? All eliminated. Either withdrawn or deceased. Vorath looked at the screen showing Maya's broken body lying beside the beacon. She had scored 2.7 on the power index. She had been told she would never make it. She had been classified as support role only, and she had dragged a dying warrior across 80 kilometers of Death World terrain on her broken back. Get medical teams to the surface, Vorath ordered. Now, I want that human in the best care we have. He had seen something today that changed everything he understood about strength. The Coalition would need to learn from this. The universe had just gotten more complicated. Maya woke up in a medical pod filled with warm blue liquid. She could not move, but she felt no pain. The liquid was doing something to her body, healing it from the inside out. Through the clear walls of the pod, she could see a medical bay unlike anything on Earth. Machines floated in the air. Lights pulsed in patterns she did not understand. Alien doctors moved between patients with quiet efficiency. In the pod next to her, Kethra floated in similar liquid. The Venkai warrior's chitin armor was being regrown by tiny machines that crawled across her body. Her eyes were closed, but her vital signs showed she was alive and recovering. Maya had saved her. That thought brought a small smile to her face before she drifted back to sleep. When she woke again, the liquid was draining from her pod. A doctor with 6 arms and skin like polished silver helped her out onto a bed. Her body felt strange, lighter. The constant pain she had carried for days was gone. You are recovering well, the doctor said. Your species has remarkable cellular regeneration when given proper nutrients. We have repaired most of the major damage. How long was I out? 3 standard days. Maya sat up slowly. Her muscles responded better than expected. The Coalition's medical technology was impressive. The other candidates? The 9 who finished are all recovering in this facility. You were the most severely damaged. The doctor paused. You should not have survived what you did. Our models say your body should have failed at least 4 times during the trial. Your models do not know humans very well. That, said a voice from the doorway, is precisely what I came to discuss. Director Vorith entered the medical bay. The tall alien moved with careful dignity, his gray skin and black eyes giving nothing away. But Maya had learned to read body language across species during her time with the Coalition. Vorith was nervous. He sat down on a floating chair that appeared from nowhere. Lieutenant Commander Chun, how are you feeling? Like I was dragged across a death world. Oh wait, Vorith's mouth twitched. It might have been a smile. You have a sense of humor? Good. You will need it. For what? For what comes next. He pulled out a datapad and showed her the screen. It displayed the Universal Power Index algorithm. This system has been used to evaluate combat potential for 8,000 years. It has processed over 100 million individuals from 6,000 species. It has never been wrong. Until now? Until now. Vorith tapped the screen. After watching your performance, we attempted to add new variables to the algorithm. Psychological resilience, pain tolerance, sustained performance under degrading conditions. We input human baseline values from our database, and the system returned an error. It said the values were impossible. No species could have evolved to function the way humans function. The mathematics do not support your existence. Maya leaned back against her pillow. And yet here I am. And yet here you are. Vorith set down the datapad. The Coalition has been measuring power for thousands of years. We believed we understood what it meant to be strong, fast, dangerous. We built our entire military doctrine around these measurements. He looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. You have shown us that we were missing something fundamental. Raw power means nothing if it cannot be sustained. Speed means nothing if it burns out too quickly. All the natural weapons and abilities in the galaxy are worthless if the creature wielding them cannot push past its limits when it matters most. A door opened on the other side of the medical bay. Kethra walked in slowly, her legs newly healed and still a bit unsteady. The warrior made her way to Maya's bed and stood there, looking down at the human who had saved her life. I told you that you could not carry me, Kethra said. I told you the math was simple. I was wrong. You were not wrong, Maya said. The math was simple. I just did not accept it. Kethra made a sound deep in her throat. My people have a word for beings like you. Beings who do not accept the limits that reality places on them. We call them gods. I am not a god. No, you are something stranger. You are a species that refuses to believe in its own weakness. The Vankai reached out and placed one clawed hand on Maya's shoulder. When we return to duty, I want you beside me. Not as support. As a partner. Director Vorith stood up. About that, we need to discuss your new classification, Lieutenant Commander Chun. Maya raised an eyebrow. I thought I was classified as support role only. That classification has been removed, as has your power index score. Vorith picked up his datapad again. We are creating a new designation for humans. We are calling it Endurance Class. It acknowledges that your species operates outside normal parameters. What does that mean in practice? It means that when we send a team into a situation that should be impossible, when we need someone who will keep fighting after everyone else has fallen, when we need a species that treats the word impossible as a personal insult. Vorith paused. We will call the humans. Maya thought about that. She thought about all the times in her life when someone had told her she could not do something. All the races she had finished that experts said were beyond human capability. All the moments when her body had screamed at her to stop and she had kept going anyway. "What about the scoring system?" she asked. "If you cannot measure us, how do you know where to deploy us?" "We do not," Vorth admitted. "That is the problem. Your species breaks our models. Every human we add to a team changes the probability calculations in ways we cannot predict. That sounds like a weakness." It sounded that way to us as well. Until we realized something. Vorth walked toward the door. "Unpredictability is only a weakness if you are the one trying to predict. For your enemies, it is something else entirely." "What is it for them?" Vorth turned back. In 8,000 years of service, he had overseen countless trials and evaluated millions of candidates. He had seen the strongest warriors and the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. None of them had scared him like this one small human who did not know when to quit. "For your enemies," he said quietly, "it is a nightmare." He left the medical bay. Maya and Kethra sat in silence for a moment. "So," Kethra finally said, "you broke their entire system just by refusing to die." "I suppose so. And now they are afraid of your species because they cannot calculate what you will do." Maya smiled. It was the same smile she had given the assessment officer back at the beginning. The smile of someone who had been underestimated her entire life. "They should not be afraid of what we will do," she said. "They should be afraid of what we will not do." "What will you not do?" Maya looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there were enemies of the Coalition. Beings who thought they understood war and strength and the limits of biology. Beings who had never met a human before. They had no idea what was coming. "We will not stop," Maya said simply. "No matter what they do to us. No matter how badly we are hurt. No matter how impossible the odds." She turned back to Kethra. "We will never, ever stop." The Vankai warrior was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something Maya had never seen from her species. She lowered her head in a gesture of respect. "Then I am glad," Kethra said, "that you are on our side." Somewhere in the orbital station, the Coalition's computers continued trying to process the new data on humans. They ran calculation after calculation, trying to find a model that fit. They never would. Some things cannot be measured. Some strengths cannot be quantified. And some species refuse to stay within the limits that reality tries to place on them. The universe was about to learn that the hard way.